The Shadows of Saint Laurent. In the year 1500, nestled within a forgotten corner of rural France, the impoverished village of Saint Laurent lay shrouded in mist and mystery. The people, simple and devout, lived in constant fear of the unknown, a fear fueled by whispers of demonic curses and the merciless judgments of a wrathful God. They spoke in hushed tones about the devil himself prowling through the night, and it was said that even the light of Maximilian Thurfer's reign failed to banish the darkness that haunted their souls. Julian, a lanky teenager with a rebellious streak, had grown used to the chill of the twilight and the eerie silence that fell upon the village after dusk. He was always drawn to the old church at the edge of town, a stone relic that bore the scars of time and despair. His curiosity, though frowned upon by the elders, forced him to question the events that had long been hidden beneath layers of superstition and sorrow. One autumn evening, as the wind howled like a chorus of lamenting spirits, Julien ventured near the dilapidated chapel of Saint-Rémy. The air was thick with fog, and the only light came from the moon, which hung like a pale sentinel in the heavens. Inside the chapel, the candlelight danced across faded murals depicting demons and angelic battles, a testament to the villagers' eternal struggle with sin and damnation. As Julien stepped closer to the altar, he noticed a peculiar glimmer emanating from beneath a small, ornate chest. His heart pounded in anticipation and trepidation. Without thinking, he opened it, and an icy specter of dread coursed through his veins. Inside lay a collection of old leather-bound journals and a silver talisman etched with symbols that he could not comprehend. One journal in particular bore the markings of a notorious exorcist, Brother Antoine, whose diaries recounted ghastly encounters with demonic possessions and unholy forces. Julien's mind raced with both excitement and a dawning horror. The journal described a malevolent presence that had tormented the village for generations, a possession that could only be lifted by confronting the devil's emissaries directly. Tales of citizens falling prey to unimaginable horrors and being driven to madness were recounted in detail. Over the next few days, Julien pored over the journal with relentless intensity. The entries were written in a hurried scrawl filled with cryptic references to the curse of poverty, fear of God, and mysterious rituals meant to banish dark entities. The diary also mentioned an ominous decree supposedly enacted by Maximilian Thurfer, whose distant voice in political matters was believed to have inadvertently sanctioned the persecution of those suspected of consorting with demons. Though the emperor's hand was never directly seen in the terrors of Saint Laurent, villagers whispered that his reign had left a trail of despair and persecution that fueled the dark legends that haunted their nights. One chilly night, after the church bells echoed through the deserted streets, Julien resolved to test the talisman's power. Clutching it tightly, he made his way to the old manor on the outskirts of the village, a crumbling structure reputed to be a gathering place for those afflicted by the demonic curse. Within the manor's decaying walls, Julien encountered a group of villagers who had come in search of refuge from the terror that had gripped Saint Laurent. Their eyes burned with both terror and faith, and their whispers recounted strange happenings, an uncontrollable force that possessed the weak and miserable, leaving them in a trance-like state of despair. Among them was a humble widow, Marie, whose story chilled Julien to the core. Marie confessed that her husband had been taken over by an unseen entity one fateful night, a possession that had stripped him of his humanity and left his body marred by the signatures of the devil himself. Unable to ignore the mounting evidence of supernatural malevolence, Julien began lobbying for an investigation into the dark happenings. Many dismissed his attempts as the wild imagination of a troubled youth, but as more citizens began to report strange visions and unexplainable phenomena, the murmurs of demonic possession could no longer be silenced. One particularly rain-lashed evening, the village was plunged into chaos. A man's anguished cries filled the night as he was overtaken by a powerful force that rendered his eyes black as obsidian. Locals gathered at the church, paralyzed by fear and desperate for divine intervention. Julien, emboldened by the knowledge gleaned from Brother Antoine's diary, decided that the time had come to confront the evil that had taken root in his beloved village. Armed with the talisman and his newfound resolve, Julien ventured into the dark heart of the manor, following the trail of torment that had left a scar on every soul in Saint Laurent. As he moved from room to room, strange markings on the walls and the chill of unseen eyes weighed heavily on him. In a long-forgotten chamber beneath the manor, he finally encountered the epicenter of the darkness, a desolate parlor where the presence of the demon was almost palpable. In that moment, the atmosphere shifted. A gust of wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing Julian's candle and cloaking him in utter blackness. He could feel the malevolent entity drawing near, its aura an amalgam of despair and hatred. In a quivering whisper, Julian invoked the words he had read in the journal, words that spoke of divine protection and the power to compel demons to retreat. With the talisman clutched in his hand, he braced himself for the unholy encounter. The ensuing struggle was both physical and spiritual. Shadows contorted around him, and a voice, not quite human, bellowed from the darkness, proclaiming its allegiance to the devil. Julian's courage wavered, yet the fervor of countless prayers filled his heart, reminding him that even in the deepest abyss, hope endured. Just when it seemed that the demonic force would overpower him, a radiant light, like the first burst of dawn, pierced through the creeping gloom. The spectral presence recoiled, its form disintegrating into wisps of shadow and regret. In that miraculous moment, Julian understood that the battle between light and darkness was eternal, that even the mightiest demons could be challenged by unwavering faith and resilience. News of Julian's confrontation spread like wildfire through Saint Laurent. The villagers, emboldened by his bravery, began to rise up against the long-standing terror that had plagued them. They organized long vigils in the decrepit church and conducted nightly processions, chanting prayers and invoking the protection of saints and God. The oppressive hold of poverty and despair began to lift ever so slightly, replaced by a tentative sense of unity and hope. Yet even as the darkness receded from the corners of Saint Laurent, the fear of the unknown lingered like a faint, persistent echo. Julian's confrontation was but one chapter in the enduring struggle against evil, a battle that would continue as long as the villagers believed in the power of both faith and the very real terrors that lurked in the shadows. Standing before the altar, he traced his fingers over the worn carvings and whispered a silent prayer, a thank you to the divine for bestowing upon him the strength to face the darkness. In that moment, the haunted silence of Saint Laurent was filled with a fragile promise that even in the throes of demonic possession and the fear of God's retribution, there existed a light that no evil could completely extinguish. And so the villagers of Saint Laurent continued their lives with a newfound caution and reverence. They knew that while the shadows might always return, so too would the light of hope and faith, a delicate balance that had defined their existence since time immemorial. The tale of Julian and his fateful encounter with the darkness became a cautionary legend, passed on from one generation to the next. It reminded them that while poverty, fear, and the demons of the past could haunt any soul, the courage to confront and overcome such terrors lay within the heart of every believer. In the silent, watchful nights of medieval France, that lesson shone as clearly as any star in the heavens.